top 5 Heisman long shots here today on Sharpen the Point. I'm looking for guys over 50-1 odds in order to put a buck or two down, not a lot, a couple bucks here or there, in hopes that worst case scenario, if they have a big season, you can cash out early. If they get their odds low enough, they're going to want to get you to cash out, or you hold strong, you get those diamond hands out and hope that you hit big on one of these. Coming in at number 5 at 400-1 is quarterback Blake Horvath for Navy. Looking at the pros for him, every game on the schedule is going to be winnable, sans Notre Dame. Even then, if he has a good showing there, he could be able to vault up boards by keeping them in the game. Bryson Daly of Army finished 6th last year in a very similar system and a very similar schedule, given that they play in the same conference. The difference is that Horvath has more passing upside than Daly, with similar rushing upside as seen by the 200-yard games that he had rushing in 2 different ones last year. And he needs to be able to capitalize more on the rushing touchdown aspect that Daly was able to capitalize on. But we've seen the plan and how Daly was able to finish 6th. So to get 400-1 odds on a guy who's in a very similar situation as Bryson Daly a year ago, Daly finished in 6th, 400-1. I like that. He returns a lot of weapons around him, specifically Eli Heidenreich, who's an absolute demon out of the backfield catching the ball. And the difference between the two is the passing upside. He's in the conversation if he can reach 2,000 yards passing with 1,500 yards rushing and hit that 40 total touchdown barrier. If he can get there, he has the chance to be able to be fully in the discussion and maybe reach to be a finalist at a 400-1 long shot. On the con side, he needs more consistent yardage on the ground, which we talked about, to be similar to Daly, and he needs to add touchdowns, similar to Daly did a year ago, and similar to what Keenan Reynolds did previously at Navy that made him a Heisman finalist. So there is pedigree that this can happen. It's hard to compare these service academy quarterbacks to other players, as they're almost a running back who throws the ball a little bit. The difference would be similar to Reynolds. Horvath's going to chuck it a lot more. This is a more advanced Navy offense that has a little bit more of a forward pass element to it, which allows him to have better numbers overall. It's just hard to compare him. Who do you compare him to? Do you compare him to a quarterback who's a runner? Do you compare, it's hard to compare a Joe Burrow, let's say an Ashton Genty, and a Blake Horvath. Horvath's almost a combination of the two, not to the same level, obviously, but he's a combination. He's a running back trying to get passing numbers, and it's neither one's going to be elite enough to match up with those single position players. It's just a question of if they can get there. Now, the schedule is going to get talked down a bit being in the AAC, even if he does it against Notre Dame. That is a detriment to him. They're going to say, well, he's not playing, similar to Genty, he's not playing great competition. Everybody had to hang their hat on the fact that Genty played extremely well and put up numbers against Oregon last year. Same thing's going to be said here. They're going to have to hang their hat on that Notre Dame game. He did not play well against Notre Dame last year, but he had the thumb issue. So if he can stay healthy, that leads into my last con. He needs to stay healthy. He battled a thumb issue last year. Bryson Daly got his chances finishing 6th, hurt as well, because he didn't hold up for the entire of the season, missing games as well. So they need to be able to stay on the field, stay healthy, and if he can hit that miracle thing, that miracle situation where he stays healthy, plays well, they hang with Notre Dame, he's got a shot. His odds should be much better than 400-1. It should be in the 100, 150-1 range rather than 400. Coming in at number 4, 60-1, quarterback Sawyer Robertson from Baylor. He had a heck of a season last year. That's going to lead him off. He didn't start the year as the starter. Daquan Finn did. He still finished with over 3,000 yards passing and 28 touchdowns. He has dual threat ability. He had 4 touchdowns on the ground and over 70 yards rushing in 2 different games. He needs to expand upon that, though. We need to see more rushing out of him. He's got familiarity with his weapons as most of, Josh Cameron returns. They added some more talent around him. Michael Trigg returns. It's a good passing offense. He showed that a number of times last year, throwing for 300 yards, throwing for 3+ touchdowns, multiple games. The defense isn't great, so they need to be able to put up more points on offense, and it could come through the air with Sawyer Robertson or on the ground with his legs. Now, on the con side, the schedule is solid. It's a good schedule, but the Big 12 is a crapshoot, and any team can beat anyone in any given week. So that leads us to an issue. If he loses 3-4 games, he's not going to have the benefit of the doubt that a Jaden Daniels did losing games at LSU. Those are better teams and more respectable in the media's eyes or the voters' eyes losses. So that's one part of it. This has consistently, under Dave Aranda, been a more run-based team. That success on the ground is going to limit his game-to-game upside. If they're able to run the ball, they're going to do it. They also return their top 2 running backs from last year, which poached a ton of numbers. I can remember playing Sawyer Robertson in DFS last year a number of times where Bryson Washington or Dawson Pendergrass just had these monster games where they were combined for 4 or 5 touchdowns. And you're like, okay, well, Sawyer Robertson needs to get some, and he never does. So that can be an issue as well. If he's sharing the work, it's a problem. He needs to be able to use his rushing ability more. Like we said, he only had 4 touchdowns on the ground. He only had the 2 games where he had over 70 rushing yards. And a lot of games he had less than 20 rushing yards. He needs to use his legs. We need to be able to see that. That's going to be able to put him there. And then lastly, he's out of sight, out of mind for the national audience. What games are going to be the game that he's going to be premier on TV, must-see TV, college game day games? They're not really on that schedule. Because that conference beats up on each other so much, it's going to be hard for him to be a national spotlight guy unless he just puts up some absurd amount of numbers. Honestly, I probably like Horvath a little bit more than the 60-1 on Robertson here, even though I've bet Robertson actually earlier this offseason. Coming in at number 3, 65-1, quarterback DeMond Williams from Washington. Most of the national people have only seen a small glimpse of him. Most casual fans have not seen DeMond Williams whatsoever. He is a true dual threat, as shown in the bowl game, which is his only start. He got limited playing time last year. Will Rogers was the starter. He would come in and spell him here and there in packages. He got to shine in this bowl game. He threw for 374 yards and 4 touchdowns, and he had 20 carries. I like that, but he didn't have a ton of yardage, only 48 yards, 1 touchdown on the ground, but I love the 20 carries. That shows that he's going to be able to tote the rock, and there's a ton of upside there. If he can get to 4 to 6 yards a carry, he's going to push for 100 yards. So you imagine a number of games where he can throw for 300 plus and run for 100 plus. Just an absolute stellar projection there. Also, this is a pass-first offense where they're going to rely on the quarterback to make the plays under Jed Fish. He produced a very good season out of Noah Fafita with almost 2,900 yards, 25 touchdowns, and that was only in 9 games. Remember, Fafita is not mobile. Williams is. So now you get that Fafita passing upside with the rushing upside that you can get out of Williams, and that just expands what he is capable of putting up. Also, he has good weapons around him, specifically wide receiver Denzel Boston, who can play a simplified version of Tet McMillan. He's had very good games before. They also have another couple good ancillary pieces to go with him. And you have running back Jonah Coleman, who is a much better pass catcher out of the backfield than he is primary runner in between the tackles, which will lead you to Williams being able to just have a check down. If he can check the ball down or run it, he's going to be able to pick up easy yardage that way. Williams, to me, gives me Kyler Murray vibes when he played for Lincoln Riley. I think Williams can replicate something similar to when Murray was able to have a Heisman Trophy winning season. On the con side, the tough schedule with Ohio State, Michigan, Illinois, and Oregon, that gives him ample opportunity to be able to put himself into the conversation with plenty of opportunity for Heisman moments. But if he loses a ton of those games, that's going to be an issue as far as being able to be the head of the line. Typically, this is an award looking for the best player on the best team, aka the quarterback. So that's going to be difficult. Also, he only has one start, so we're trying to draw. We're really projecting here, one start, and it was only in a bowl game where a lot of people sit out, So how do we project that? That game was massive, and we can hang our hat on that, but it's one game, aka Jackson Arnold, the previous year, who had a monster bowl game and then just stunk the joint up at Oklahoma last year. So there is some concern with that. Coming in at number 2, at 50-1, he's probably the best guy on this list as far as the guys that could do it. You'll see why in a second with number 1, is running back Jeremiah Love for Notre Dame. On his pros side, Notre Dame is one of the better teams in the country, and it's very live to win every game with a ton of marquee games, given what they returned from last season. Because outside of quarterback Riley Leonard, this team is mostly intact and is very, very good. Love is the best player on the offense, and he's going to be the focal point of this offense, which is a key to being a Heisman contender. Now, he cleared 1,100 yards last year and 17 touchdowns, including scoring in every regular season game, so his name is well known, so he has a little bit of a profile. It's very similar to Ashton Jeanty, right? Jeanty got a reputation for that first year where he was breaking out, and then last year was able to capitalize on it by building upon that breakout season. And then, like we said, he's going to be on the national stage constantly with the number of games that Notre Dame plays on national TV that everybody tunes into, playing Miami, playing Texas A&M, playing these other very good schools. That gives him plenty of opportunity for Heisman moments, but they're not the elite of the elite teams that he's playing. He's playing very good teams. On the con side, he did not get enough touches last season to accumulate the Jeanty-like stats that he would need to be a serious threat to win this award. His most carries in a game was 16 last year, and 137 yards was the most he had in a game last year. I think in order for him to have a legitimate shot at this award, he needs multiple 200-yard games. So he needs to stay healthy. He had a lot of injury issues last year. If he can put it together, stay healthy, get roughly 16 to 20 as his baseline carries per game, and average out to 150 to 180 yards per game with some 200 and 240s mixed in there with some big plays, he's got a shot, right? And then something in the neighborhood of 2,000 yards overall and over 20 touchdowns is going to get him in the discussion as long as Notre Dame stays undefeated. So he's got a shot to move up the board, be live, and his odds will drop from 50-1 into that 5 to 10-1 range, and you could cash out very easily, similar to the other guys above. Most notably, Horvath is going to move up because of where they play Notre Dame as well. Coming in at number 1 is going to be no surprise to anybody who's actually listened to me before on the podcast and anybody who's ever talked to me about college football. He's 200-1. I've bet this. I put a 5 spot on it, hoping to hit it. It's my favorite player in college football, quarterback Rocco Becht for Iowa State. He is straight moxie. The man just oozes it. He's got Baker Mayfield-esque moxie. He's just a winner. I love the kid. I think he has the potential to be a top draft pick, have a Baker Mayfield season, have the Baker Mayfield plant the flag style. I mean, the kid just has it. He can throw it off of all angles. He doesn't get the credit he deserves, looking at you, Bud Elliott, and what was a run-first offense has transitioned to Rocco's team as Carson Hansen and Abu Sama are not David Montgomery. They're not Breece Hall. They're going to go as far as the arm of Rocco Becht can take them. Abu Sama had that one great game. We all thought he was going to be wonderful after that great game where he just pranced all over the field in the snow. And then afterward, he's been just abysmal. They haven't addressed the running back situation. It's Rocco. It's his arm. We're riding the heck out of that thing. He's got good experience having started the last 2 years and a strong season last year with 3,500 yards, 25 touchdowns. Looked absolutely unbelievable in that bowl game against Miami. And he's an underrated dual threat. He had 318 yards rushing and 8 touchdowns on the ground a year ago, including a game with 97 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground when they needed him most. They're going to need his legs this year. So if he can get to 4,000 yards passing and breach that 5,000 or 500-yard rushing total with 40 touchdowns combined, he is firmly in play for this award. These odds, he should be closer to Sawyer Robertson's odds, closer to Damon Williams' odds. He should be in that sub 100-to-1 range, somewhere in the 60 range. He starts out the season with a just Heisman eliminator game right away, playing Kansas State. You get the Avery Johnson hype train. Becht's going to outplay him. I think Becht moves on, and very quickly his odds drop below 100-to-1 right out the gate. Now, cons. He's not without his warts. He loses his only 2 weapons from last season. He only really threw the ball to Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins. There's a reason those guys were drafted early in the NFL draft, because they were very good players. We've seen the Iowa State, though, just roll guys in. I think Chase Soule's going to have a very good year and be able to take over that Higgins role and play very well. Do I think Xavier Townsend is going to be as good as Jalen Noel? No. Jalen Noel is a dog. He has just got a heart of a lion. He's just physical, dominant slot wideout. He's going to play well in the NFL for a reason. Can Townsend get to 70% of that and then have another weapon step up? That's what I'm banking on. That is the biggest question mark right here, is can the weapons around him be good enough to pick up from where they left off a year ago? Rocco's going to feed the ball. He's going to put it in the right spots. He's going to run the ball up the middle. He's going to take shots running the football, and he's going to bounce back up with a bloody lip and just be mean about it. I love it. Now, in the same vein as Sawyer Robertson, he's got a number of good games, very good matchups, but they're not national spotlight games. So they're all dangerous, which makes the record come into question because Iowa State hasn't been able to capitalize on those situations. But if they can somehow have the ball bounce their way, Rocco Becht has a legitimate shot. I hope, and I know, he could be the number 1 pick in the draft and the Heisman Trophy winner this season.